Hello again. Today is Thursday, November the 21st, 2013, and it's about 10 o'clock my time. And I want to talk about sugar tits. I looked up the term sugar tits and I found on definition on Wikipedia, sugar tit is a folk name for a baby pacifier or dummy that was once commonly made and used in North America and Britain. It was made by placing a spoonful of sugar or honey in a small patch of clean cloth, then gathering the cloth around the sugar and twisting it to form a bulb. The bulb was then secured by twine or a rubber band. The baby's saliva would slowly dissolve the sugar in the bulb. It was one of the early pacifiers of its day back in the 1700s and 1800s. But as babies grew older and developed and eventually became, mature adults, or what would hope to be mature adults, they had issues with cavities and tooth decay. So they stopped it long about the turn of the century, and it's very rarely used today as far as that is concerned. But I want to talk about the term sugar tit, and in particular what it has to do with ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, NBC, and in particular NBC News, and then also MSNBC, and their NBC, ultimately NBC Universal, NBC Comcast, NBC Xfinity. It's all tied into a neat little bow, a neat little sugar tit. And early and often, NBC News and MSNBC and their official conglomerates, right on down to the root, 24/7, suck early and often at the sugar tit of the American Legislative Exchange Council. And I find it interesting in reviewing, and I've talked at length rather, about the American Legislative Exchange Council, did a video here, and I'll link all of that concerning how ALEC does business and the way in which they affect national elections, and in particular groundbreaking legislation as it relates to the stand your ground laws across the country, voting, voting rights, civil rights, basic human rights. And it is interesting to me that while the great and good some over at NBC News and MSNBC and the Grio and the Root 24/7 wax long and poetic on how mean and god awful and rotten the Republican Party is, and in particular the grand old party, as it were, is mean and rotten and god awful, and George W. Bush lied and thousands died, and Bill Clinton lied and nobody died, etc. They do it all the while collecting a paycheck from ALEC, because ultimately ALEC signs their paycheck. They don't want to admit that over there. Phil Griffin and Chuck Todd and Uncle Dick Wolf have transformed and confirmed and conspired and callywagged and cajoled things in such a way that at the mere mention of the term ALEC and or the American Legislative Exchange Council, someone somewhere is put on immediate suspension for 30 to 60 days, okay, for exposing the truth and telling folks out here what it's really all about. But yet, out of the same sides of their mouths, the American Legislative Exchange Council, etc., they're mean and they're god awful and they're rotten, and how dare they participate in fronting stand your ground laws and voting rights suppression in South Carolina and North Carolina, and it's god awful and it's rotten, but yet they collect a paycheck. To me, I find that hypocritical. I find that very hypocritical. And I found it even more so yesterday as I was watching an edition of Politics Nation with Reverend Al Sharpton. They were talking yesterday about the Grand Old Party and how god awful and how rotten and how low down they were. And my good Twitter friend and buddy, Miss Joanne Reed, that runs the Grio.com for NBC News, was on there with Reverend Al Sharpton, and talking about how mean and rotten and god awful the grand old party is, and the supposed, do nothing 113th Congress, etc. We've talked about that, and how god awful and how rotten the Republicans are, the obstructionists, the party of no, etc. All the while collecting a paycheck like normal, situation normal, all fouled up, from the American Legislative Exchange Council. And I was going through looking at the membership for ALEC, and I found some names there. One name in particular I found was Bill Griffin, who's a member of the American Legislative Exchange Council and has been since 1989. Another name I found that was a member of the American Legislative Exchange Council is one Mr. Roger Ailes, the Chief Executive Operation Officer and the guy that's in charge over at Fox News Channel. Another name I found, and he's been, forgive me, Roger Ailes has been a member of ALEC since 1979. Another name that I found of interest that's been a member there since 2000 is one Shaquille Oneal. And we talked at length about Shaquille Oneal and his involvement in the New Jersey gubernatorial race, and his endorsement, his formal and public endorsement of one Christopher Christie, the current governor now of the state of New Jersey, Republican. And Shaquille Oneal sits on the board for NBC News, NBC Universal, NBC Comcast, NBC Xfinity, Msnbc, etc. Then there are various other board members. I won't get into any more specific names, but I found those of interest in particular that run NBC that are card-carrying members of ALEC and have been since the early 70s. It is a giant sugar tit. The American Legislative Exchange Council is a giant sugar tit. And the Media Industrialist Complex laments and wax poetic the bidding of ALEC, whether it's concerning the Democrat Party or whether it's concerning the Republican Party. In this case, the flavor of the month is to trash and bash the Republican Party and the do-nothing 113th Congress and how mean and rotten and god-awful they are, all the while promoting and advancing and re-upping and renewing websites. MSNBC did this big rollout, this big formal rollout. NBC News did this big formal rollout on their brand new website. Uncle Dick Wolf and Matt Murray and Uncle Chuck Todd, they all got together, they sit down and they did this big to-do, brand new website, and they're promoting it like hotcakes over there, how great and how wonderful, and you can get involved and get active in your political process and stand out and stand up and speak out and speak up, etc. And it's being filtered, though. It's being filtered through ALEC. Now, I won't participate in it, but I've watched it. I've watched it over the last few weeks that they roll it out, and it is amazing to me how they have so much success rolling out new websites over at MSNBC, yet our United States federal government can't get together the exchanges for the Patient Affordable Health Care Act website and or Obamacare. Can't get that together. That's interesting to me. The supposed private sector can put it together, but the public sector, out to lunch. Out to lunch. It's a sugar tit, folks. It's a giant, forgive me, it's a giant, one big giant circle jerk. And Roger Ailes and Phil Griffin and Shaquille Oneal and all the rest of them are in on it. And they've been in on it for a very long time, apparently. Shaquille Oneal not been in on it all that long. He's only been on it really since 2000, but he's gotten in. He's in. He is funneling money, transferring money from ALEC to NBC News, NBC, Comcast, of course, Comcast Cable, Comcast Xfinity, all ALEC. It's all ALEC. Yet, we have people like Al Sharpton gum bumping and Joyanne Reed gum bumping about how mean and rotten and god awful things are. And that leads me to my next point. Because of this sugar tit, because of this circle jerk, it is the American Legislative Exchange Council and its payees, I find it hard to believe that we will be able to get these petitions, these sedition petitions, answered. I find it hard to believe that because ALEC is so entrenched, the Skull and Bones is entrenched, the Bohemian Grove is so entrenched in our American political process, and then you couple that with Rothschild money, Rockefeller money. To me, it's darn near impossible. They've got it sewed up. It's a nice, neat little bulb filled to capacity with sugar. And here we are, the unlearned and the uneducated, sucking at it every day. Because we don't have anything else better to do. We don't have any time for anything else. We're so busy. We're on Facebook. We're on Google Plus. We're on Twitter, Pinterest, whatever the flavor of the month social network is these days. We don't have time. We've got to post pictures of our babies, pictures of aunties, pictures of uncles, pictures of granddaddies, pictures of great granddaddies. We're not getting into the nit grit because the sugar tit tastes too good. We don't want to leave it. We don't want to give it up. We don't want to put it aside. Damn the cavities, damn the tooth decay. We're happy. We're happy in our little world. We're happy in our little circle jerk. Don't bother us. And it's sad, folks. It's really sad, and it's distressing to me personally. Because effort nearly every day is put forward by the average concerned citizen, not unlike myself, to genuinely do something. To roll up their sleeves, to go to work, to participate in something, to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And we run headlong into walls, brick walls, concrete walls, in the form of ALEC. It's frustrating. And the only way that I can see to get anything done, unfortunately, is armed rebellion. It's taking a gun and literally going to war. That's the bottom line. That's the only way that I can see personally to get anything done, to get heard, to get paid attention to get something understood. That there is a very real and very serious problem here. You people are breaking the law. You're not abiding by the rules. You're making up the rules as you go along. And you need to be called out on it. And if necessary, stood up against a wall and shot. That's the bottom line. People say, well, that's going back. That's going back. and we need to move forward, etc. And they complain about that. Well, that's what they did in those days. In the early days, the early going of this country, if you were found in treason or sedition, you were either shot, stood up against a wall and shot, or hung for dereliction of duty, for treason, for sedition, for conspiratorial, for whatever. The penalty was death. That used to mean something because it put fear of God in the hearts and minds of men. To not do that, to not participate in that, to not be involved in that. And that's what these petitions are all about. They are, albeit, a peaceful means to an end. But because of ALEC, because of the Bohemian Grove, and because of the Skull and Bones, and because of the Rothschilds, and because of the Rockefellers, we have direct interference on an almost daily basis. And it's wrong, folks. It's wrong. It's flat out, plain, teetotal, plain D, extraordinarily wrong. It's wrong. It is what they are doing and what they are participating in and involving themselves in is treasonous. It is treasonous acts against the United States of America as a sovereign nation, as a still sovereign nation. But it's easier, it's far more easier to complain, to cry, to whine, to mope, to moan, and just collect a paycheck. Continue to suck from the teeth. All the while, and you know really the truth. And you've known the truth all along. Yet you're a willing participant in the sedition. Forgive me, in the treason. And it's wrong. And it needs to be exposed for what it is. And I'm going to continue to expose it, publicly and privately. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.